welcome to the EMO committee. It is January 24th at 6 p.m. So it's been a couple of months since we've been able to meet. So the first thing that I'd really like to discuss tonight is our winter weather event that we had before Christmas. That was kind of our first little emergency where we had kind of activated. We opened the warming centers, we cooked meals and different stuff. So I provided you a package of the notes that I had done up. And then we also had a report that came in from Walter Bidlake for the Yoho Lake Lodge, or whatever, the Scout Lodge, because we opened that as a warming center as well. And then committee member Ross Mathers, he had sent in a report, and John Johnson, our member, also sent in a few recommendations. So I'd really like to start to get everybody's ideas of what they think worked, didn't work. I think for kind of our first one, I was saying to Councillor Bringlow yesterday, I did a lot of the stuff in the background, like calling for Irving and Taylor Petroleum to make sure our generators were filled, propane tanks were filled at the fire station. There was a lot of calls contacting DTI, different things like that, organizing things for food. And I said it was kind of the first time that I really thought, okay, this is how, if we had actually had to activate, how our committee would be working, because each one of you guys that had one of those roles, you would have been the ones kind of making the call. So it was a nice, I'm kind of glad that not that we had a storm, but it was a nice little practice. It was good practice for me, so I would actually know how to make sure that you guys are doing things correctly when we actually have to activate. But it was really great to kind of have that under our belt kind of thing. So I found the biggest challenge that we had for those people that could get the Voyant alerts. We had a bunch of people comment saying how much they appreciated them and that they liked being aware of what was going on. Our other issue is for those that weren't able to get any communication because they didn't have internet and stuff. So we did send out flyers on many areas that were hit the worst. We went door to door with flyers. So John Casey and Councillor Bringlow took some.
Ross was involved.
Ross
in that too.
was helping as well. We took some to Yoho Lake. The mayor delivered a few. And after all of that was done, I realized that we didn't put a note on there to sign up for Voyant. So that's kind of one learning thing, like any communications that we're putting out for flyers and stuff like that, we should always have our Voyant alert stuff on there to get people to sign up. So that was one thing. So to me, communication is going to be huge. So any suggestions on how we can... Susan, I was going to say Mayor Cassidy.
Couple things. It may have been easier if you had actually called us in, because we didn't get the experience. So, and we sort of waited, I and another person waited to hear from you as to what we could do.
Right.
We never heard from you.
No. So I think that the biggest thing there, I didn't expect it to be, we weren't expecting it to
Right.
end up being the storm that it did, or
And
whatever,
this isn't
so.
a criticism,
No,
like,
no.
it's just an observation in that it would have been beneficial for all of us to have participated. And with most emergencies, I don't think we will know how long they go on. So, you know, something to consider. The other thing was, where did the flyers get delivered to? Because there were none in my neighborhood. So they didn't get out to everybody, obviously. They only went to certain neighborhoods.
They went to certain areas.
Who made the decision as to what area got them?
It was from MB, because I had been in talks with MB Power that was saying mostly like where the areas were, because by the time we sent them out, people were starting to get their power back
It was Thursday morning. Yeah.
or whatever, so.
I can speak for our area. We got some flyers, but we were really only concentrating on vulnerable people that we thought that might be alone, elderly people, people that had other challenges. Those are the houses we were trying to get to.
That would be my house.
Well, but we were just doing in the Island View area. I would say we would have done maybe, 20, 30 homes. It wouldn't have been
And remember,
a lot.
this was day 3, so the 72-hour
Oh,
clock
no,
had
understood.
expired, so.
But it was pretty cold after 72 hours.
So fair point, though, it brings perhaps a to-do item going forward. This would be part of whatever communication plan we have going forward. So who are we communicating to and why? What messages are we gonna advertise? We probably have a growing list, for example, putting the text messages on. And then if you're gonna make the decision or somebody else is making the decision, where's the information coming from to aid in that decision? So for example, if somebody is in a region where the power's coming back on, I was in an odd spot where 2 houses over the power was on, but there's 21 houses where they weren't.
Same.
Right, so based on what, are we gonna make a decision to send people to look for dropping off flyers? Do they need help? Do they need heat? There has to be some kind of a decision-making capacity based on the communication plan that you rightly point out is gonna be important going forward.
Right, so my thing was, I had been talking to MB Power and they had told me the areas that were not going to be on for a fair amount of time. So those are the ones that we concentrated on the most, was to get information out to them. Or whatever, but, so yeah, so that brings us back to communication. So if the committee is not activated, how would you like me to proceed with those? Do we go to every house? Because it's hard to
We're gonna have
do
to
that
resources.
because you don't, one, we didn't have manpower.
Even with the committee, you wouldn't have the manpower
No.
to go to 7,500 or however many homes there are in Hamwell, you just can't.
Kind of thing, so I guess
Just
when
an
you kind
informal
of,
thing, really. It's not a structured thing. That was just a one-off. The opportunity was there.
yeah,
And maybe we do need a process around it, but it certainly wasn't a formal thing that we've ever even talked about doing anything
No.
formal.
Basically, our communication is to Voyant and social media and stuff like that. And at that point in time, there was a lot of people that were out of power, so everybody knew. It's the thing that going forward, you put it out there that if this does happen again, these are the services that we can assist with after the 72 hour. If you have concerns, you can call this number or email this. We can't go out and, like Sherry said, 7,500 homes and pick and choose, and if somebody wants to go do it, then fine, but you put your communication plan so the people that are out there can call in and find out what's going on, go to a website, if they have that option at that time, or down the road, we could send out a flyer when there isn't an active incident and say, in case of an incident, these are ways that we can be contacted, these will be possible locations that will be open, you can go there, i.e. fire halls, community center, municipal office, wherever. So they can have a pre-plan in their head and say, okay, we've been without power for 3 days. These areas or these buildings could be open for services, so we can get in our car and drive there.
Right. One thing, because Dan DeCleva, he was here at the office, working for a little bit. And one thing that we didn't do that we should have, I know a few of you did wellness checks on people, but we didn't go to our nursing homes and our seniors' homes just to even call or go to them and see if they needed anything. So that is one thing, if we have another storm, that we've really got to make sure that we know that there's some that have great plans and all that, but you can have a plan, doesn't mean that you're going to do it, right? So I think that it's worth our while to a phone call even, or stop in. So I think a wellness check
That's
too.
actually in our emergency plan.
Yeah. Terry,
Yeah,
a number of meetings ago, we talked about some of this, and we said we should have a list of vulnerable people. The way, I think it was Oromocto had. It was a volunteer
We've
list.
discussed that off and on, though, it's just,
it's
we don't have the resources to do that.
it's a very
No,
hard,
but
but it's
again-
also a hard thing to do. Like how do we determine which house has vulnerable?
Who's vulnerable?
But
Unless they
I think
self-identify.
you
Yes.
were gonna look into it, I think.
You can't, I mean, we know that the special care homes have vulnerable people, and we know that that's a group we can definitely, but as for individuals, we can't manage that kind of database.
Yeah,
It might even be a privacy issue involved. there,
That as
too.
well.
Everything
Yeah.
that's what you
Yeah.
need to do.
What about a campaign, just a general campaign about checking on your neighbors?
On your four neighbors, your four nearest
Pardon
neighbors,
me?
or I think it's your four nearest neighbors or something, you're supposed to check
Yes,
on.
exactly.
And
That's
that's
what I'm
within your
talking about.
72-hour preparedness is the
You
check.
know, like, see if everybody's okay, like the 4 houses beside you and.
Yeah, that's kind of how we were looking at it.
That's what we.
Yeah.
Now, I also, we have a nursing home in our neighborhood, and I did go see the owner. And they have a full power generator, and she was all right. She was picking shingles up off her ground.
and I think even if we know they have plans, like I said, it doesn't hurt to reach out to them and even just say, like, we realize that
Well, they may not have communications.
okay, but we want you to know we're here, or something like that. So I think that's one thing that we really need to work on for next time.
Terry, did I send you the information? Like, I sat home waiting for the phone to ring, thinking the committee would be activated,
Yeah.
listening to my old antique transistor radio, because that was the only means of the power's off, the internet's off, the only means of communication I had with the outside world other than cell phone. And the landline was still working at that time too. But, I think we could have put something on the radio, like the broadcast AM, FM radio, to say this is happening, this is the situation, because that's the only, I presume there was lots of other people in the same boat, that's all.
Yes, you did mention that. It's part of this committee report that I sent out. I don't even know who, do you just contact any radio station for the
I
AM?
think they'd be
FM?
more than happy to help out,
I think you might have trouble with that because there won't be anybody there.
there's somebody there,
Not at the
spinning the
moment.
records and stuff.
No,
Try it Saturday afternoon, there's nobody there,
Oh, on Saturday now.
Everything's pre-programmed now or aired from another part of the country.
I can reach out to the radio station just to see what their protocol is.
Yeah,
And see if there's like a cell number or a
Then
phone
you enter
number.
the problems of what station are you listening to?
Yeah,
Well, I think the thing is that, like, for example, Bell Media runs like the country, they run all of the they run like 4 or 5 radio stations. So if you were to send a message, it would go to they put it on all the stations that they currently own. So you probably hit almost every,
Yeah, there's only two,
choice of radio.
there's the two big ones, and then there's some small independent ones.
Yeah, so you'd probably just choose the two big
But
ones. and then go
CBC has an emergency, if there's a real big storm, CBC goes live.
Yeah.
And they have people there, and they have a number to call, and they also have a line in, you know, that you can go to their website and see all the cancellations and everything else going on, and, you know, so you might wanna start with that one.
Well, that's the same, so the radio station, so that would be the same number you contact, the one that, where they do the list of cancellations. That's the same, you would just contact that same number, and you would just say, this is what I need, and they would put probably put a message on, and then they'd also do it, do an audio as well. I'll contact them.
CBC be the first place to start and go from there.
Aren't most people, they're using their phone for their information, right? And there's news services on your phone, MB Power's on there, people, that's where they're getting their information,
But
aren't
unfortunately, I didn't have any internet,
they? Well, we didn't either, but if you get a data plan.
and my data plan is not well either. So there's a lot of people, like especially in my area, that we were dead in the water, like we had no cell, we had no, the phone, you know, we had Rogers phone, which is run by
Yeah.
internet, so you just, yeah, so I was pretty much,
Rogers was down anyway, wasn't it?
no, yes,
Rogers
Rogers was down.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
Not Rogers
No,
Bell,
well-
not Rogers phone.
What's for us?
Rogers and Bell were out in these areas because the
Because-
trees that come down. the
Took
mountain
everything.
Yeah,
took
because
the
there
lines
was-
out.
Yeah.
We were.
And there was
we
some
never
of
lost
transformers on in Tracy or
Lost a lot,
Fredericton
yeah.
Junction, they were out for a while. Or whatever, so, going back to the activation, then if it's an emergency that myself, staff, council can handle, do you still want me to activate? Because hardly anybody activated.
Because we were able to handle it.
So do you want me to activate and you guys come in? Because literally, like, we contacted, I'm gonna say, maybe 6 companies, like between DTI, Taylor Petroleum. So then you're sitting here for, 8 or 10 hours.
To me, I didn't think that warranted activation.
Perhaps not, but were you busy? Like, were you kept occupied? Like,
Well,
were
I
people
was,
coming
'cause
to
I
use
was
the
cooking.
showers?
We were okay. And
Yeah.
people came, like, I know I was there the second day, but the first day, it was pretty busy. But there was enough people here to kind of manage it. It wasn't, people came in, they didn't come all at once, they came in like bunches, so
Okay.
it's,
Were you
Yeah.
guys overwhelmed?
And not really, no,
I didn't.
no.
No.
it's-
I guess,
Okay.
And I mean, if we activate, that means there's
Oh, no, I know.
3 of us right here that was out there helping that's not going to be there.
Hmm.
So then you're going to have, can we find people
to do that.
to do that part of it?
I think the call is yours to make, for sure. And if you have made the decision that you guys are fine, then that's okay. But if it goes on and on,
Oh, yeah.
there are people without power for 5 and 6 days, or at least 5. So, they might have been, could have been, a learning thing or whatever.
Right.
But, it's
You
still your
wanna
call.
do your learning on a tabletop on an actual.
Pardon me?
It's nice to see it, but it's better to train in a tabletop exercise.
Oh, yes, no, I don't know about that, but,
I think you learn more by having
By
an
doing it.
actual like emergency
Doing
it, yes.
kind of thing, because you
I
don't
do as
kind
well.
of,
Because we learned lots. I found there was lots to,
yeah, I did too.
Well, there were so many things that weren't expected that came up, that you can't foresee a lot of those things, and you just had to improvise.
Yeah.
Like when we put the flyers out, because we realized that, people didn't have internet, so that was the next step. Well, let's put out flyers because we don't know who has internet, who doesn't, so it was kind of like we busted it as it happened.
Yeah, hats off to you guys that were.
oh, yeah, no, it was,
It was actually kind of fun.
wouldn't you be better off with the
People were
flyer
really
going to the
appreciative.
radio station? And now it can be broadcast.
I'm going to
Yeah,
look into
we'll
that.
definitely
I will
look
look into that. Yeah.
for
I
sure.
got one of those little crank radios and the damn thing wouldn't work. I couldn't crank it enough.
Oh, really?
No, I'll look into that.
Does that mean you weren't cranky?
One question about the
Does that mean
shelters.
you weren't cranky?
Exactly.
The three shelters were all open, the ones that we have in our plan. In our orientation materials, there's all this stuff about logging in and who's gonna manage them and all that. Did any of that?
Yes.
Was that any of that used at
Yes.
all? Those logs were?
Yeah.
They were?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yoho
yeah.
did, or
The fire
whatever, so.
departments would.
Did anybody
The
go-
fire departments
wouldn't.
wouldn't, because that's not really, I mean, they're a warming station kind of thing. Those are more, that you need those for shelter, not as much for, to come in and plug in your phone kind of
Gotcha.
thing.
Yeah,
Those are more so that if a family member goes missing, then we can say, okay, well, this person was here, they left in the snowstorm and they haven't arrived. That's kind of when those ones are done, but Yoho did kind of keep a log of who
We
was
have,
there.
we have a lot of the houses we went out to do warming and checking
Yeah.
and stuff on.
Sorry, did you say the fire department did not keep track of that information?
No.
So I suggest that we ask them to do so, because that was a missed opportunity to actually have data. How many people showed up?
Yeah,
Because that will give you a set,
yeah.
tabletop exercises, yes, but it was game time, so how many people showed up at X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
If somebody was overwhelmed, that means something, that becomes a so what to a planner.
Well, we
If somebody was
we were able to
underwhelmed,
gather the data on where and when and how many people we heated.
Yes, on that, but we're
Yeah,
talking
we're talking
about
about
No, but I'm
going
just
to the
saying that
fire
was a piece of
department.
data that we found, but
Yeah,
those two pieces can go together.
yeah.
But people showing up to get water or,
the
Oh, yeah,
people that
no,
didn't
no.
keep,
Right.
there were some people that weren't tracked, so that was a missed
We
opportunity.
had people that didn't even live in the area. We had people coming from Dumfries, like Davidson Lake,
Mhm.
to come and get water or even get warm. Because their station was out, their generator, something happened, but, so, because we had people come looking for drinking water, we had nothing to give them.
There might be some reason why the fire department doesn't want to do that, but that's critical data.
They
When
must
a-
have
when a
potable
situation
water
happens.
at the fire station.
No,
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 but they, in their
No.
own sink or their
No.
own
No.
house.
no,
you don't wanna drink our water at
it's
the
not
fire station.
potable.
no.
We were sending people, we would do flush water and stuff,
Yeah.
the two, but if anybody needed potable water,
Came here.
we sent them here.
It doesn't get used enough, like your household, and then it creates the, just sit there not being used, and then you get all your smells, lovely smells.
But you didn't have bottled water either.
We had some,
We
they
ended
brought
up
us out a
doing
couple
some.
cases, but ideally, 4-liter jugs of water are what we would want to give it.
So that should be on the to-do list.
Yeah, cause the bottles of drinking water, like if you come to me and say, I need some drinking water,
They get
well, how many do we
they
give you,
get half
6?
used.
Do we give everybody 6?
Right.
Do you give them, and, cause back in the flood, I wanna say we gave out 4-liter jugs of water. They brought us like skids of them and you would give out 4-liter jugs.
And I'll tell you, when we went to get water that day, Counselor DeCleva and Dan, our maintenance guy, went to take the truck and load it up for water. They had a bugger of a time finding water.
Oh, okay.
They went to like 4 different places before they could even find any bottles of water to bring here so that I could distribute to the fire departments and stuff. But it's my understanding that EMO, if we need it, they can
They used
source
to.
it or
They used to
whatever.
source it.
Yes, they have, there's places in town where they have crates of that stuff. So if it gets to that point where we're calling for provincial assets, they can, and if not, they know where to order it and get it here.
Right.
Like there's a potential to call Sobeys and say, we need X number of skids. They may have it in their warehouse in Moncton or Oromocto or wherever, but they will have the ability to get it shipped in. Or Superstore, any of those big carriers, like, they have the contacts to get that stuff through critical infrastructure.
Good to know.
Um,
You know, if they come to the point, there are companies in the area that haul bulk water for pools and potable water, like Kilburns and H2O and stuff like that. If it was the summer and you needed water, that time of year there's a chance of it freezing, but in the summer, if you need to bring bulk water in, you could reach out to one of those bulk carriers and have water brought in that way too.
But it wouldn't be potable water.
Yeah, because they have, like, the bulk carriers that are licensed, that pull it out of the city, like H2O, New Maryland
Yeah.
Water, Kilburns and stuff. All their water comes from the water treatment plants in Fredericton,
Right,
so it's potable certified water.
okay,
You'll see those big trucks going and
Yeah,
they'll have the stickers on the side of it,
yeah,
and that's because they've been certified through the city to
Okay.
pull that water.
Okay.
And they're not allowed to pull out of any other water source.
good to know.
Okay, so, make a note, we need to put out a thing on social media. There is funding available for anybody that had damages, that was not covered by your insurance, so I'll, provide you with the 1-800 number and stuff, so we'll put it out there. I think the deadline for submissions is March 1st, or might even be March 31st.
Where's
So
that-
sometime in
Where's that
March.
coming from?
I'm assuming federal government.
DAP, Disaster Assistance Program, it's administered through the province, but it's federal money,
So it's a provincial program,
federal provincial.
funded nationally.
So, there was, they haven't announced, funding for municipalities yet. They were, getting, everybody to submit their expenses so that they could see if there was enough. So we had extensive damage to our walking trail. We had over 250 trees come down over our walking trail, so we had to hire a company to come in and clear them out because our staff would have been a month of Sundays doing that. So those expenses I have put in, the cost of our food, any mileage. We had to rent heaters to do the homes and stuff, so we put all of those expenses in to see if there
Did
is
you put
going to be
man hours
funding.
in as well?
Man hours,
I don't think so.
I can't remember if we did or not. Because it was volunteer, I think they said that I couldn't. But they told me to put a note. I'm pretty sure that on my email. And then I said that there would be things, so hopefully they will come back and say that funding will be available and we can get reimbursed for those expenses, but there is funding available for residents, so we'll be sure to put that out to them.
Okay, Terry, speaking as, when Chris asked me to bring that brochure around, first I'd never seen the brochure, and I thought it was wonderful. I thought, you guys coming out and offering to heat homes, because you're right, we were just starting to get cold. And some of the people I visited, I did find in the neighborhood visiting these people, 2 of them had generators that somebody else had given them. Okay, and so they had the plug going in. They weren't used to the maximum, they were just one plug coming in and it had a light, and another guy had a heater, that was it. But if you can multiply that, or see that happening, that you have volunteers, somebody in my end of the neighborhood, it's only 30 homes there, and another 30 homes down the hill, another 30 homes over there, and somehow notify them by word of mouth. Chris came up to see me, we had no power, like, so he came up to see me and said, would you hand these out to the people up here? Can that be done and replicated around our whole community? You may not get 100%, but I know the people in my neighborhood, as you say, it's more than 4, the 4 immediate ones, but I know them, and I know who's by themselves, and I know who's got generators because I can hear them.
So you mean like to pass out flyers and stuff when
Well,
we
if
need them?
that's what you need passed out, or, you know, like, I wasn't thinking other people are getting cold, and if they were, what can I do about it? Now I got a fire department who says, I got a great big heater here, and if you want, I'll give you 20 minutes of heat. You know, and it's, I don't know, what was the reception like? People tell you to go away?
No, they had to call.
They
No.
called, they called
They
in
had to call.
and
They had
requested.
to call me, but what happens when you did it?
Well, great.
We had one negative.
So it worked.
I think there's one or two, as you're gonna get with everybody, that didn't get enough heat, or,
Yeah.
but 99% of them were so appreciated. You know, people were coming out, how much can we give you? No, it's volunteer. You sure? No. Like, people were offering us food and all this stuff, and,
You took their cookies.
nope. The chocolate bar, oh yeah.
But I mean, see, that's a service that we can build on, you know, and get the word out, put it in that newsletter, you know, and we build on it from a positive as well as a communication method of it worked.
Yeah.
You know, it actually worked for, I don't know how many you did.
We
You know.
did probably,
This is but this isn't the first time I've done it either. I've done it for the last, well, we've probably done it, last Christmas Eve I went to Bath to drop off heaters to do the same thing. A couple of years ago, we were out in the village of Harvey on Boxing Day for the storm that went through there. We had to get houses for 3 or 4 days out there during Christmas and whatnot, so. It wasn't the first time that the fire departments have ever done this. So, and then after that, we were pretty much all somewhat prepared with at least one heater per department that we kept. And then we were able to go neutrally to anybody, any area around here to do it. So,
So what I get from that is, A, you should have more heaters, right?
Yep.
B, you should have more generators,
yep.
Yeah.
you know?
And C, we need more trucks to pull them around with.
Yes, or somebody else to pull them, you know, like,
Well, you
you
come
know,
in
how
with-
you can hire a truck, but you can't hire a generator, that easy. It's much better if you had your own. Or like Yoho, I was surprised Yoho don't have a generator. It had to be hauled there, right?
Well, it's a community generator, it's used between 2 buildings.
We put the transfer switch in,
Yeah.
and it's very easy to hook that generator up.
Yeah, it is,
and
but it's
only
gotta-
takes
it's
20
gotta be
minutes
done.
to get it there.
It's gotta be done.
But
Yeah.
there's an issue there too.
It was too
because
expensive.
That generator, no, go ahead, Susan, finish
No,
your
I'm
thought
just
there.
saying.
No, they're not cheap.
No, it's not cheap,
No.
it was
But-
very expensive to get it set up.
Yeah.
That
Transfer
generator
switch.
comes from Station 2, right? And what happens if the power outage extends to Station 2 and Yoho? Then I think the priority is gonna be Station 2, right?
Well, you gotta have a way to get the
That's where
trucks
it's
in.
stuck.
So, you know.
so we're already,
How big a generator?
Chief Kraus and I have been talking to see if it's possible that we
Yeah,
can
it's one of the big ones.
get a generator for
So it's
the
not
fire
10,000.
station.
And then have that one dedicated for
For wherever we need it,
wherever we need it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, for us to buy a generator for a building that we don't even own, we don't lease, we
Yeah.
kind of thing, I think would possibly open a can of worms or whatever, but more than willing to do that, because it's great that such an asset that Walter Bidlake and Sean Haley and the rest of
Yeah.
their group will even look after that, so. And it was quite an undertaking, because when Sean Haley and I first started talking, that we might need something, he was saying, you know, like, it's gonna take a while, that's a big building. And he said, it's gonna take a while to heat up, so he said, I've got to get down there, heat it up, and he said, and I cannot open until the next day. So, you know, you kind of have to take that into consideration as well, that we've kind of gotta be almost thinking a day ahead, which is not always easy to do when it's an emergency kind of thing, right? Because you don't always know when the emergency is gonna happen. Susan?
Well, When we purchased that generator and put the transfer switch in, getting the transfer switch was a big deal. I mean, Scouts Canada and everything, and I mean, it wasn't an easy task because again, we don't own the property. But that aside, was it not, like when the fire hall was built, there was an option to put a generator in,
Correct.
and it was said that they didn't need it? I'm pretty sure that's what I recall.
At the time, however, they can't get their doors.
Pardon me?
They can't get their doors up when the power is off.
Too strong testosterone.
They take about 10 minutes.
Why, go ahead. You gotta break halfway up, cause they put the small cogs on it.
You're ruining my joke.
So, but yes, and so we have been, as I said, Chief Carson and I are kind of talking of possibly looking at
Yeah.
getting one, so then we could
Be
use.
available for whatever.
Yeah,
Is it
But you
geared up
wouldn't,
for,
sorry.
sorry, is it geared up for a generator right now?
at the fire hall?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to switch.
So you just need to plug it in.
Same as, you know.
But that second generator wouldn't be stored at Yoho.
No.
No, it can't be stored at Yoho. Even when it was down there, one of them had to take it home because you do not want to leave it there,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I
right?
know.
Because
Yeah.
you're,
it's not insured then.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't see us leaving
No.
one there, kind of thing. But it worked out well, like I said. We were very fortunate that Sean had come in and he went and got it and delivered it and set it up, brought it back, took it to his.
And there was no problem with the connections or anything, it just went good.
Yeah, they did say that it had started and stopped a couple of times or whatever,
For
but
no
they just
reason,
figured
just-
that it was just because it hadn't been
Yes.
running a whole lot or whatever, so they said the next morning I had contacted them to see how they had made out, because I thought that maybe it needed to have maintenance done on it, and they said it was fine, so.
Do they test run it at the fire hall? Like on a regular basis?
They do at least once a month. I think.
We've done it, yeah, like,
Once a month?
it
Okay.
gets run.
That's good.
So anything, oh, sorry.
Well, just to back up, we don't want to lose the thought of the portable heating units. You guys, my understanding is you guys need a process for that, right?
Yeah, we gotta have something in place.
Yeah, so is
Because
that something that we as a committee take on, or is that something that the
Well,
fire
the
department?
chief taking the phone calls is not part of the process. He's just too busy taking the phone calls from you, and then your firefighters are trying to call in because the radio's tied up and whatnot, so honestly, we need to designate a couple of guys on the line.
We need basically a comms operator at one or both stations to receive all these calls coming in for assistance. Because right now, the calls for heating comes to his cell phone.
Yeah.
So if he's home, happens to go home in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody needs heat, it's coming there. So really, we need a landline system or a designated 1 or 2 phone numbers on a cell to take all these in. So when we're sending trucks out, we're not tying up radio traffic. And as part of the process too, is we were running all our heaters on trailers, which in theory sounds good, but we did have one incident where a trailer come loose. And then we were backing into small areas, so going forward, my suggestion would be to arrange to have rental trucks with these heaters on the back of them.
I guess my question is,
It's a safety issue, and that way you're taking the trailer portion out of it, you have one unit. So, that's something that's gotta be looked at, and Lee, you were the one at the cat about getting the heaters, weren't you?
Yeah,
Cause we didn't have, like, United Rentals was out, and unfortunately, not many people knew about CAT, so we were able to get them down to CAT.
but the process of, we need to have a process set out of who's getting heated when. Like your vulnerable people, like we had numerous calls of going to heat houses that weren't even occupied.
Yeah.
Not occupied, shut their water off. So honestly, my thought was, because you had mentioned we have numerous lines going into Station 3, we have radio communications. I honestly think as it grows, if the situation ever comes again and then it grows, we designate 2 firefighters or 4 down at Station 3 with the landline numbers. And because we have a radio, and then we can set up an operations and send the people, but we need to, it needs to be done systematically. Like we just can't go heat empty houses or empty apartments.
Like triage almost, like
It
a
needs to be
hospital
triaged. So your vulnerable people, I went to one house 6 times. Just because I knew the people, because of their location, the age of the house, and the age of the occupants. I just, yeah, that's no problem. Doesn't bother me, and it should be. It should be done that way. The ones that left their house and went to a hotel and shut their water off, the heat that we're putting into your house is not going to prevent your pipes from freezing. It's just not, because it's not going to last long. And the biggest thing now is houses are getting, instead of being 1,000 square feet, they're now 2,500, 3,000. Go try to heat a split entry with, and you have to go in through a garage. It's gotta be, we just have to have a system that, you know, or even if you have a secondary heat, like if you have your heat pump heat on your generator, or you have a propane fireplace, then really you should be good. We'll get to you when we can, but we need to, some of them we just honestly need to say no.
And some of that can be done through the phone call.
Some of that could be, it could be screened, and then we can say, because the chief was taking just the information from the people, and we never knew it until we got there, what we were getting into. So it's just, and people were kind of misinterpreting as us going to heat their houses, we were giving them a heater to put in their house. We've had calls from the city of Fredericton, Mactaquac, Keswick Ridge, looking for us to come heat their house.
Right.
So,
And even going back to them contacting Chief Crouse 4 different times when I was talking to Chief Crouse those days, I was like, okay, we've got to hang up, because I couldn't even understand him on the phone. So it's pretty bad when we aren't able to be in contact with the fire chief or whatever for communication.
His cell phone needs to be set aside for emergencies. And when we're doing this, there needs to be dedicated lines.
Yeah.
And that's where if fire service members are out busy, you know, if we need extra people, we could bring in the EMO committee if the committee hasn't been activated to assist with some of those phone calls.
Even if we have been activated, going there and helping you guys out would be a good thing.
the thing of it is the communications there for the heating needs to be done by the fire department. Like honestly, it needs to be, because I'm gonna get on the radio, or Jason's gonna get on the radio and say, and they're gonna radio back to us as they're finishing up your house, let's say. So then the guys are gonna radio back and say, we're done at such and such an address, and then we're gonna say, okay, here's your next task, please go do this. Like it needs to be a constant.
We have a third party in answering the phone and have a list of questions to ask to triage it, but as far as dispatching our trucks.
Oh, no.
No, dispatching the trucks
Just
has to
take
be
the
done by
pressure off
firefighters.
the phone.
But
Yeah.
is it not possible to train volunteers, like, I don't know whether it's an 8-hour training or 4-hour training or whatever, on what is required during that type of situation?
We would have to write a
because you
training,
have-
we would have to write a training package.
Well, in the long term, the way the world's going, it might be something to consider. But, I mean, it might be helpful if you had residents in the community that wanted to help, and if they were trained, then they could look after all
Because
those
if we have
requests.
dedicated lines like down at Station 3,
Right,
then we could go there, and we're not here in the middle of anything, and we're
Okay.
not at
Right.
Station 2 or Station 1
Yep.
in the middle of anything. There's just 3 or 4 people there doing the work. That way you can get spelled out,
Right.
and because we have the communications, there's nothing in the background, you know.
Well, I mean, that's where they would work out of, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Because the capabilities are there down there, versus here you have one line in.
Here it's kind of good.
So you couldn't, ideally, we couldn't do it from there, but if we dedicated 2 of the lines that are down there for an emergency, or this housewarming thing, or whatever happens that we need it for, then at least we have it.
well, you did a great
Is there-
job regardless.
In your volunteer fire department, is there maybe a couple of people that could be designated to be, you know, really understand that system and?
He was just designated at the time, because we've been so well versed in it the last 10 years that we pretty much all.
And it depends on who's around, like
Yeah.
if it happens during the day or the evening, on the weekend, again, you're volunteer, some people can leave work. I was fortunate enough, I was able to leave work and come
Here.
for a couple days. Others couldn't, and then, you know, people that live in our area, they had families, and some of them did what they could, but they also wanted to be, you know, take care of their family as well, so. All our members pitched in a little bit, some put a bunch of hours in, and some put a whole bunch of hours in. But in the end of it, it got done, and we come together and did what we do.
Right. So, go back to our heaters. So you were saying that it didn't work well on the trailers.
It does, like we've done it that way forever. We sent a crew over to Miscou Island there a couple years ago, and we put it on a half ton and sent it over, just because it was such a traveling distance. But I mean, we've done it the other way with the trailer a bunch of times.
So you guys had the truck,
Yeah.
our truck. Could you not have put it on the truck? Why
We
did
could have
you put
taken
it
the
on
tonneau
trailer?
cover off and then mounted everything in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
It had
it's just
the
with our
tra- it
fire
had-
trucks, we can't.
The
because
mayor had
everything's in
brought a trailer in that, and Shane had donated a trailer. Like, the only trailer we used that would have been hand walled was the aluminum one from the fire department. The other 2 small ones were private citizens.
Okay.
And it's just backing in, like, we had some members that were doing really good, but they didn't have backing up a trailer experience.
No.
So when you're getting people in doing it, and it's easier maybe to have it on the back of a half ton, so you're only backing
Instead.
1 unit in, it mitigates any incidents with trailers.
Right.
Be hooking them up, lighting, jackknifing, things coming off, it eliminates that altogether.
So how many do we actually have? Like I rented 2.
We only had one. We only have
We
one.
only have 1.
Ideally, it'd be nice to have at least one more and a generator to run it. And these don't require a big generator, like we run it with the
Used
little
ours, right?
suitcase generator
Yeah.
out here. Which is perfect, because it's not,
So if we had
Alright.
two as an asset and then needed more to rent, you're leaving it, maybe you only have to rent 1 next time, but 2 would be nice.
Two additional ones, or just
if we
2?
just had 2, because if everybody around us has a heater, like Harvey's got 2, or Mato's got 2, you know, and as the incident grows, it's just one of them things that it's gonna happen. You're not gonna get to everybody.
Right.
It doesn't matter how many, you could have 15 of them and you're still not gonna get to everybody every day.
You're not asking for enough.
Well,
You need 2 working, therefore you need 3.
So ask council for 4.
So, I have a question.
Yes.
Heaters were great, people appreciated them, but we're chasing our tail here a bit, I would suggest. What problem are we trying to solve right now?
Well, my question is, do we need a process? And if we do, it sounds like we do. Is it the fire department that's gonna develop that process, or is it the EMO committee here gonna develop that process, or?
I think it should be the EMO committee that will do that process with input from Lee and Jason, because they're the ones that know.
because I'm getting whatever Harvey's got, because Harvey has a process that they were using the same time we were doing the heat, and
Okay.
Bath
Okay.
does the same thing. They're quite busy doing it as well, and they have their own set of questions and they have their own waiver. So when we go to your place, you sign a waiver. But the process, you still need a process of who's being heated and when and how.
We need that triage.
We need to triage it, we need, because we just can't be running
Yeah.
willy-nilly and then
Yeah, yeah.
grouping your heating in areas.
Yeah.
Because we were at one point driving past places, to go to places, to drive past places.
But that was also because people requested a specific time to be
Yeah.
heated. And after work, so after 5 o'clock, is when everything gets busier.
Right.
Because people are coming home from work and they're starting to get their generators back up and realizing that they need it. So inevitably, we were staying open until like 9 o'clock out at Station 1 for whoever needed, for whatever was needed. So these long incidences, like an 8 to 4, doesn't work. It's a go until from dark to dark,
Okay.
I guess.
And then we
Be
have
there
to
at
look at
5
it
and
too,
leave
we're,
at
we're still
9.
an emergency service, so outside of heating houses, we still have to have assets and people available to respond to emergencies.
Yeah.
Because we did have that too.
Yeah.
So,
We had a fire like Batush had this weekend.
and we had a good fire that weekend too, so.
Did you?
So, Councillor Croce, you will get the
I'll get
process
stuff
from,
Harvey and Bath.
okay,
Then we can kind of build,
That'd be a good start.
add or subtract, whatever. Because we need to keep it simple, right? You don't want them,
Yeah.
you don't want them on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes asking them everything. They just want heat, they want help, and then,
I think you also want the ability to say no,
oh, definitely.
you know, like
You have to,
there's
you
a
just-
cutoff, I'm sorry, your house is empty, you'll have to wait.
Yeah.
You know, I'll call you 3 days time.
That's where if it comes through this committee who is basically with council, if you say no, people complain, well, don't
Complain to the fire.
Don't
department.
complain to the fire service, please go to the municipal unit.
for sure, okay. One thing for Yoho, they said they really need a cell phone booster. Because there was no cell phone at the lodge and the landline doesn't have service, so,
That's not a big buy.
no.
What service do they use?
Well, see, out there, like,
Terrible reception.
Is it Bell or Rogers?
it's no, I think it's,
I think it's ExploreNet 2 maybe.
yeah, there's a few, but there's no cell phone reception, ever.
Yeah,
like
but
there's
whoever they have may give them the booster.
Well, boosters.
Oh, you mean like the Scout Lodge
The
itself?
booster's a universal, it doesn't matter what carrier,
Yeah.
it just pushes the signal out to a tower from a cell
Actually,
phone.
Yeah.
my son got one on his house too, yes. You're right.
Okay. Cell phone boosters, we'll look into,
So what Ross is getting at, all the carriers will provide their own boosters if they're not able to provide the service that they advertise. So for example, if Madam Chair or Mr. Mayor writes X, Y, and Z carrier a letter based on your experience as the chair of the EM committee, residents in the area who have, and use polite words to suggest you have spotty reception for your service already, were not able to reach out and get the services they needed, will you consider, words, to providing a boost, through whatever technology is available? Because I would suggest that the town does not want to get into the business of buying and maintaining infrastructure for personal use, which will be what it is used for 99.9% of the time.
And also, we don't own the building.
Don't own the building. Where are you gonna put it? Put it in a tree? Well, someone will get upset about that. DNR will get upset about that.
okay,
But I think you're right, Susan, they're not that expensive. It's really not a big item.
But depends.
Anyway, it's a principle to it, so.
so it's not going to give everybody a cell phone, it's just going to be at the lodge, right?
Yes. I have one in my house. It's an antenna about this big. And you plug it into the wall, and there's a booster. It takes in this cell signal, and it boosts it. So in my case, we're in a dead zone over in Driftwood. I go from 1 bar to 2 bars. It's like anything else, you can buy cheap one, you can buy expensive one, there's commercial ones, industrial
okay.
ones. I strongly suggest the town does not want to get into buying and maintaining infrastructure for those reasons. If it's in our emergency plan and you start to disperse them, there's remote boosters you can take out to various sites for that reason. But that would be the first place to start.
Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking, is it
Well,
something that
it'd be
we
the kind of
can
thing
buy
if
and
the
then just
generator
take?
goes, that goes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
For the
absolutely.
people that are within
That'd be a
EM that are
reasonable
helping
approach.
out there, but when the incident is
over, then it comes back
shut
with
down,
them.
it comes back. So,
Yeah.
that's the only way you can get out of the municipality looking at the infrastructure the way you were suggesting. Like if we just put it out for that time and bring it back, but not maintain it on a 24/7 basis.
Which is what we wouldn't do that anyway, because it's not our building, and we don't use it for anything other than an emergency.
Yeah.
So there'd be no reason to leave a booster there.
Were there customers who showed up at the Scout Lodge for heat or coffee or
Yes.
whatever? Yeah?
Yep.
Do we know how many? Or-
Yes. December 22nd, there was 12. And I thought there was some the next day. Yep, I think there was like 12.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then we're gonna do a process for heating. We'll look into cell phones. We'll make sure that we do wellness checks. We'll put out a campaign for knowing your 4 neighbors. The AM/FM radio. Was there anything else during that event that,
If we are gonna be doing wellness checks, there needs to be paperwork taken. If it's somebody through this organization that sends somebody out to do a wellness check, whether it be fire or another volunteer sent out, make sure there's some paperwork documenting you were there. Certain things to look for, certain things to ask them, make sure they're okay, and not just knock on the door. That way you have that data, you have that paperwork to come back if something happens. If we sent somebody out to check on a person and then so many hours later something happens, well, when we were there, this is what
at
we
such and
found,
such
and
time?
we left, this is what we found, so. More so for liability.
But if we get into that kind of a formal check-in on people, we kind of own that, and we are responsible. I think what we did was very informal. We
Now, if you as neighbors just go around and check,
But,
you're perfect.
yeah, that's all we were doing is, checking with neighbors, and then when you check a neighbor, do you know of anybody else that might be vulnerable, and then you kind of leads to something else, that kind of thing. But when you get into a formal process, then you kind of own it, and you could be held accountable.
And that's why I said having documentation, but whereas you guys as neighbors just checked on your neighbors who happen to be on the committee, are just doing the community nicely.
And we happen to know, because of that brochure that was sent, that we received, that somebody was there to give them heat, if it was a dire emergency.
Yeah.
I mean, none of our people knew it, well, none of them had communication with it.
Too cloudy for smoke signals, so we can get everything out.
There is another thing, I don't know how many people are aware that the Delta were giving out $99 room nights if you didn't have power.
I didn't know that until I think
didn't know
I
until
got the email from you.
Yeah, and these people that took it thought it was just wonderful. They said, A, we were hot or warm. They had their grandchildren come over and go swimming. They had a nice dinner in the restaurant. They said it's the first vacation they had since he got sick. So they didn't want to come home. But it's there, and sure, they had an empty house.
I would have taken that up even if I had power.
Now, I don't know what the rules the Delta do when they kick that in. I know they did it during one of the big storms a few years ago. but it's something we may wanna put in another,
Yeah, we
And
can
or whatever.
find out, and also I know that the Radisson does some, but the Radisson also has, I believe, the contract for NB Power and stuff, like a lot of them, or they did previous years, they
And the
always
Radisson's-
stayed there.
And the Radisson's got a contract with Red Cross as well, so if Red Cross needed housing through their plans,
Then they
Radisson
would
is
go.
one of their contacts.
Radisson doesn't have a meal service, do
Yeah, there's a kitchen there.
The
Yeah,
restaurant.
there's a full restaurant there.
they? Is it? I thought they used Sam Sneed's.
No,
No,
there
there's
is
a restaurant in there.
When you walk in the first floor, it's the dining and kitchen area right
Yeah.
beside the castle.
Just one other thing, Terry, I did have a follow-up call from Johnny's Gas Park,
Okay,
and they do have a generator on order. It says it's gonna be 12 to 14 weeks out. And when they install it, in a situation like that, they plan to be running everything.
Perfect.
Pumps, he said they're gonna give out free water and free ice. So it's kind of a bit of a, it's not really a shelter, but it's a
It's a place to go.
Resort, still a place you can go to get warm.
you know, so.
Where is that?
sorry, where was
The old Coburn's Garden.
Johnny's, and how long for the
Johnny's,
generator?
Johnny's Gas
It's
Bar.
Johnny's Gas Bar in Islandville.
Yeah,
And
12,
he,
14?
on January 18th, he said it was gonna be 12 to 14 weeks for the generator to get here. But it's gonna be a generator big enough that he can run the whole operation.
It has to be big to run those pumps,
Yeah.
because he's got a lot of pumps there.
That's good.
So he was keen, eh?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's on board.
Just reading
24
through
hours, that's good.
Yeah,
the notes.
I mean,
Oh,
full
one-
generators.
More thing, the water treatment in Birchwood Estates, that is not owned by Hanwell, that's still governed under the province. I was talking to the engineer that looks after that, and he was saying because of the extended outage, they had to do a boiled water. Yeah, advisory and stuff. Anyway, so he was just saying how he was pleased that we could put that out also on Voyant. But he had mentioned about wondering if Hanwell would ever consider buying a generator for that. I'm not sure why the province wouldn't have a generator. But that might be something that we can look into under EMO for grants or something. I don't know if there's anything possibly that might be available for that, but it might be something that we can do, because I wouldn't be the least bit surprised in a few years that will be transferred over to us anyway. But it would certainly, I mean, we still have to look after our residents regardless if something's owned by the province or not. So it is something I think that we could possibly look into.
Yes, because even if they have a generator of their own, they still can't get water. Because if the water treatment plant was down, they get nothing. So unlike with us, at least if we have a generator, we can still get water. Like we can hook our generator up and get water. They don't have that luxury.
Because it's central.
Right.
But they want a central generator to run.
To
pump
run it,
water.
so
To run
that-
it,
yes.
so they can.
So if, perhaps when they get serious about turning that over to Hamwell, you say not without a generator.
But, I mean, that could be a few years, but I think it's certainly something we
You
need to,
don't want it to come to.
No, I don't want it, but they're gonna force it on us
You
anyway.
don't, how can they force it? They tried to force it on us before and we said no, and we stayed with the no. So,
Anyway, is that DTI or environment?
It's environment.
environment.
anyway, I'm just saying, like, if we come across something that there is grants available, I think it is something that it probably wouldn't hurt to look into.
I think, again, part of the water should go to DTI or Department of Environment. Requesting they put a generator in there because of the situation that it's our residents that are affected.
Yeah, you could do
And
that.
consequently, it's our fire department that has to come and provide them.
Send a joint letter to environment, local government and DTI, because the asset would actually come through DTI. Now, whichever budget they put it through, but
DTI.
Why would it come through DTI?
because they own all that stuff. All the vehicles in that asset filters
Asset
through,
management.
asset management's through DTI.
I bet you they own the land.
First step, find out who owns what.
Yeah,
Condition of
If you ask
infrastructure.
local government
The problem.
and they weren't
Yep.
responsible, they'll defer you to.
Yeah, I'd be, if there's grants available, great, I'd be very hesitant of spending municipal money on
Oh,
anything that
absolutely,
wasn't- that
yeah,
wasn't
no,
on-
I definitely wouldn't.
But you don't even
Once
write
again,
money
it's not
for
Condition
something
of
we
the,
own.
condition of the infrastructure. We're not even allowed to use the fire hydrants down there for fire trucks,
Yeah.
so.
Because you pump it dry or because they don't?
Never really asked, they just said not allowed to use them. They're
Cro-
there,
Cross
don't
boys
use
aren't
them.
trustworthy.
Even if environment could have something written with United Rentals or CAT or something if it goes down,
Right, just during a power outage, have
just
something.
during a power outage.
How many people are on that source?
Would you say 15? It's 2 streets,
Yeah, I was gonna say
15
probably
to
like
20,
20.
15 to 25 maybe?
That's not that much. The
Yeah,
easier
and
solution,
there might be more, I've only drove down those roads a couple of times or whatever, but.
so the aim is to get people water. The easy solution might not be hundreds of thousands of dollars in the generator. There might be an easier solution to get 15 people water.
Right, and I mean, I wasn't expecting $100,000 for a generator either, like, I mean, we have a massive one out here and it wasn't anything like that, so.
And we're just looking for, we're just gonna see what we can do. We're gonna, and all we're doing is just gonna investigate it, we're not gonna go
Yeah,
and purchase, we just wanna know what our options are. Is our option to go through DTI? That's great, we know we can do that.
yeah,
Send a letter and see what they say.
Yeah, see, they might even have generators that we could get short, like if the power goes out, be able to contact DTI and get them.
well, you would think if they did, then their engineer would be aware of it.
I thought a lot of that stuff when I started working for government.
Because the water goes down, so let's say they have no power for 5 days. They have no power for 5 days, it comes back up running, they're still on a boil order for 4 or 5 more days. Like it's not, it's like double the time. Yeah.
Yeah, because they have to have 2 tests. Yeah, it said that they have to have 2 tests come back, or whatever. One more thing for Yoho, they were saying that maybe we should have a sign made so that they can put at the end of their road. So I was thinking of contacting, we usually get a lot of our signs and stuff from Sierra Signs on the Mazarola settlement.
If you're doing that, do it for all the stations. Like we
Everywhere.
had,
Or
we had
shelter
people,
open, yeah.
we had people come by Station 2 that just because of the layout of the building, they weren't sure if it was even open or not. So on the warm nights, we would park a truck outside so people would know. But on the colder nights, we had the doors closed, and there'd be a couple, and we had people come by that stopped in and were just checking because they didn't know if we were out a call and those are our vehicles there or what was going on, so.
Right.
Good point.
For the stations, have a sandwich sign out saying water, open shelter, whatever.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, Station 2 wasn't used as a warming center, device charging or anything like that.
We had people come in to
Yeah.
charge, we had people
Yeah.
come in
Yeah.
to warm up, and
See,
we were there and people requested it and we weren't gonna kick them out. So
we took that out of the emergency plan because Dan DeCleva said don't use fire halls in any way, shape or form for warming, charging, shelters, anything like that. So we took it out of the plan, but if
Leave it,
it's in there.
But I think that makes sense though, because like, you can't rely on them to be open. If they're open, great, if there's people there, great, but they're not gonna be, they may not be manning it for 10 hours because they could be out on a call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if it's open and you stop
So-
by and they're available, great, go in and charge your phone. But I don't think we need, it shouldn't be kept as an actual
On
No.
that Thursday night, like there was crews out and I stayed there till 11 o'clock until the 2 heater crews come back. And people were getting water for their flushes and just coming in and
Okay.
we weren't open, but if there's somebody there, a sign saying that they can get water here or, you know, even if you need help, come in here. When people are there, that way people know that there's somebody in the station.
Not official, it's not an official, we wouldn't call it an official warming station.
No,
Right. It was
And
just
that's where-
available, it was available.
That's
Yeah.
where the community center would have, could have come open because people were looking for stuff. And the thing of it is after they're getting home from work, they don't wanna go far from home.
Yeah. Well, the community center's fine.
Yeah.
Up your way, it's the fire hall itself.
Yeah.
That they don't want used for that.
We put a sign on the door saying if nobody's here, call the chief
Yeah.
line, and then we'll go down and he'll go down and meet.
Yeah.
Because the odd time we had to step out and do something that left nobody there, so.
Right, so once again, maybe we shouldn't be putting Chief Krause's name on there and we can go back to that landline or
But
whatever.
the landline for there goes to his phone anyway. So
Or
after
just
3
have
rings,
some volunteers, have some volunteers sitting at not at the fire department, but sitting at
On
the-
call or whatever,
At the
so.
community center, and keep it as a warming center from 8 to 4 or whatever,
like I said, 8 to 4 doesn't even,
or 8 to 6, whatever.
8 to 4 doesn't even, really doesn't work because we were busier.
3 to 11.
Yeah, and
Whatever, 3 to
even
11.
here, we opened it when we came to work at
Yeah.
8 o'clock and so many people said, for the showers, like, is there any way that you could open earlier so that I could have come in to have a shower before I went to work? Kind of thing. So I think that, yes, we are definitely going to have to open earlier. We are closing at 4 o'clock and then we're getting people that were like, oh, like, I wish you were open later so that after work I could have come in and had a shower or whatever. So the next night when we did the supper,
Yeah.
people loved that. Like, even if they didn't stay for the spaghetti supper, they just came and had showers and stuff. Like, our showers were busy.
They ran
Yeah.
all day for 2 days.
Yeah.
For 2 days, but like Sherry was saying, it was, I mean, we didn't ask for it to be like this, but it just so happened that it was like revolving doors, like people come in, then people would go out, like
Yeah.
pretty much we didn't have anyone waiting, so, and that's just how it worked out at that time. But that being said, towards the end of the day, people were having sort of like lukewarm, almost cold showers. But at the same time, no one complained about it, they were just happy to be able to have a shower. But they ran all day for 2 days, like.
Yeah, because the first day we probably had between 40 and 60 people
Yeah,
or whatever,
Yeah.
and then
the next day was pretty
we
much the
fed
same.
over 100.
Yeah, those showers ran for 2 days,
Yeah.
all day.
And then breakfast, we had breakfast
12.
and lunch, I think we had 40
Not the day I was
altogether.
there.
And then for supper, we had almost 70.
Yeah, we had 70 for supper.
Yeah, it was like a busy supper rush at a restaurant. Like the place was packed.
Yeah.
And people were taking dinners home to their family members that couldn't be there.
Yeah, it was kind of
So-
nice because there are bottles of spaghetti sauce and stuff. Then we filled them
used
up
to
with
take 'em.
spaghetti and stuff for takeouts for
For
people,
takeout
so-
containers, yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so quickly want to go on to the next thing, which is our committee's future tasks. So we don't have to go into great detail tonight because this is something I want you guys to think about. But Councillor Bringlow and I were discussing, last year especially, I found it very difficult to be kind of thinking up ideas for meetings and stuff like that. And if you remember, when Mark was a committee member, we kind of did, that was when we were into communications a lot and trying to figure out what we were going to do. So we had done a plan. So I really think that we kind of need to be discussing like what we want to do each month, because it's nice to talk, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And special thanks to Ross and Councillor Bringlow and everybody else that had any input getting our emergency plan amended and stuff. So now that we have that done, there's so many things that we can do from that. So I think that every month we should be kind of working on stuff, if it's processes, if it's future guides that we can do, if it's amending our plan and making it better kind of thing. So I think that we really need to kind of think about what we would like to see the committee do. So if anybody's got any ideas, like right now, we can talk about it. I had forwarded you the emergency planning guide for municipal officials. If anybody wants a paper copy of this, we will print it off, but I didn't know if you guys wanted, if you were just gonna look at it more for electronically. It is about 32 pages.
If you want one, just email me and I'll print one off.
Yeah. So anybody that wants one. But this one is a really, has some great ideas in it, and so we could be looking at this, getting ideas from it, and then moving forward with our plan. So we had talked about all of our roles and responsibilities. Remember those sheets that are in your little baskets and stuff? We could look at those again. We just fixed that a little while ago. It's probably been a year ago. Remember, because we didn't have one for a scribe person, and we had made a new sheet for that person and different things. So we have fixed those, but now with the emergency plan amended, there might be things, wording and stuff that we want to match to that emergency plan. So that could be something that we do like next month, if you want, is just to kind of go through all of those and make sure that everything is okay, and if we want to add things out of it or take things away.
I think that's one thing. Those roles and responsibilities really should be in the emergency plan, either as an appendix or in part 3 maybe, or part 2 or 3. Most emergency plans do have that in there. It's just that we didn't feel we were ready to put them in this time. But I think we should take the time to go through them, clean them up, get the language consistent with the plan that it is now, and then when we do revise the plan again, I think it's important to get those in there. To do them all in one meeting, I don't think that would be realistic. We should all look at them and be prepared to talk about, you know, we've got other things we want to do too, like this process that these guys are talking about. That's important. That's got to be priority. But if we took maybe even a couple per meeting, what is there, 10 or 12 of them?
Yeah, there's probably.
So
I don't even know if there's that many.
I think there's that many.
Let's say there's 10 of them. Even if we took, say we designated 1 or 2 and said, for the next meeting, can you please look these over, get comments, and then at that meeting we firm them up. And so over time, you know, maybe the next 6 months or so, we have those firmed up and they're ready to put in the next version of the manual.
Because I think like once you change the wording on one, it's pretty well the same thing on just about every one of them.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I don't think it's going to take
And like you
that
said,
long to go through.
and like you say, just put an appendix in the current plan, so they're in with it.
Yeah.
You're not changing the structure of the whole plan, just add that.
It's appendix B
Yeah,
or
they
appendix
could
C.
go in
Yeah.
as an appendix. Right now, we
Yeah.
refer to them on the fan-out chart as documents that are held outside the plan, but they really should be in the plan.
Yeah.
And we just got to clean them up, get the wording consistent, and make sure we're still all in agreement with what they say. I know after the last exercise, the tabletop exercise, there was some questions about them. And So there's different thoughts on them. We should, as a committee, agree on what they should look like and what they say, and then get them firmed up and get them in the plan the next time around.
Sure. So let's do, next meeting then, do the heating process. Because you would probably have the stuff back from Chief Swan.
Yeah.
Or whatever, so we'll do that for the next one. I will send out the roles and responsibilities to everybody electronically again, just in case you don't have them, and then we can just kind of review them, bring questions back, and then we could have a meeting. So if I got those right out to you, then you have until, the next one would be February, so you'd have until the end of March, really, and then we could probably go through all of them all at once, because that gives you 2 months to,
Can't see there being a whole bunch of major changes, so if there's a word or two here in one of them, we could probably review all of them in one evening.
yeah. And if it happens to go on to the next one, and there's nothing saying that we can't have more than one committee meeting if we needed to have 2 in the month, then
Yeah, really, there's no
We
sense
can-
of dragging that out over months and months, just get it done, and
yeah.
probably isn't gonna be a whole lot of wording changes to a whole lot.
Probably
of it
isn't, no.
anyway, so.
Probably not.
So we'll do the heating in February, we'll do roles and responsibilities for March.
There's something else, Terry, that won't take any time in the committee, but the Red Cross agreement, you need to get that updated.
Yes, we do. That was just names.
Yeah. I guess depending on how they look at it, but yeah.
Well, with Red Cross, it could be, the names change quite often.
No, it was who's signed it, like we need a new one signed because the people that have signed it don't even work here.
Okay. Cause I know they have a fair amount of, their
Yeah.
EM people change over and move around quite a
Yeah.
bit too, so.
Another thing we want to keep in mind is that EMO is working on a new template for a plan. They've committed to that. So I'm expecting sometime in the next year that we're going to see that. So at that time, we might want to align with that format. I'm not sure. But Kyle Levitt, the director of EMO, he is committed to developing a new template. So,
Yeah, just remember, it's only a template, there is no legislation, so you don't have to.
no,
conform.
we
We can use what we have, we don't have to, there won't be any legislation in,
No.
within the government saying municipalities have to use this template. They're making it so for the municipalities that really don't know what they're doing, or the new municipalities are building things, that's what those templates, they would like to see everybody sort of flow along with them, but I don't think you're gonna ever see legislation stating that
no, there's no legislation.
municipalities have to use these templates, so.
No, but they would like to see some consistency across the board with them, and I don't know what that's gonna look like, but we've passed some concerns along to them about the current template. They've actually taken it off their website now because they knew there were problems with it, but anyway, there's a new template coming.
Okay.
And,
Just kind of skimming through this to see if there's anything right off that.
another thing that came up too was that Mike Mockler is speaking quite strong on this. He would like to see us look closer at more scenarios, more, if you want to call them contingency plans or whatever. He's not happy, and we know that there's problems with that assessment form, the all hazards, risks and vulnerability assessment form. That form is messed up. It doesn't work properly for all potential scenarios, especially if they don't have an environmental impact. So they're gonna work, I emailed Dan DeCleva and Claude Chouinard on that just within the last month, and I passed along an email from Mike Mockler on it, and his points are exactly what a lot of us have seen. The form is messed up, it doesn't work right. So I expect there's gonna be a new form, and we should probably run all our, at some point in time when that comes out, we'll run our scenarios through it
Scenarios,
again, or potential scenarios, and there might be other ones get kicked out. We might have to create new contingency plans for those, if you wanna call them contingency plans.
It's the risk analysis that you're doing.
Yeah, it's a risk analysis, yeah. So, but those are things in the next year that could come out.
Okay, anything else that people would kind of like to see?
I'll probably think of like 20 things on the way home. Like,
Because John, you had sent the email around and had some ideas of how we should go about things. Do you? Because a lot of yours was, you know, once we implement everything and then just kind of plan and test all of this stuff, so.
Well, I gave you an example of a collective planning process. So like when I brought up here, a lot of good ideas, but we're chasing our tail a little bit. What's the problem that we're trying to solve? Because if you start down a path, you're gonna limit people, time, resources. How many heaters are we gonna buy, for example? How many people are we gonna assign to the heaters? How do we get on, well, what problem are we trying to solve? 100 people, 10 people, does the town want to get into that business? These are the things that we have to decide up front. So that was a very simple template for collective planning. NBEMO has a 15-step plan. That one I gave you there was a 5-step, but it gets you to the same place. So the first thing in a collective body, because we all have individual skill sets and backgrounds and clever ideas, we have to collectively agree on what's the problem we're trying to solve. Because if you don't agree on that, you're never going to come up with a solution, right?
Yep.
So that's the very first step. What decisions are you going to make and for what reason? Sometimes they're based on money. Is it going to be budget? Is it going to be based on, okay, we want to include an active shooter, even though the all hazards matrix doesn't get us to the score that we want. So there's all kinds of weird and wonderful things, but again, collectively arrive at what we're trying to do and why. And so and if everybody buys that, the very first thing, I'll reiterate, which I did in November, we all have to be using the same information. So there has to be a repository of information somewhere where people can go in and find things. When we're doing our work, there'll be federal things that come into play, provincial things, NBEMO things, regional things, municipal things. But if we're going to ask folks to my left to come up with a plan for X, what information are they going to use? Because folks to my right might be using different information and we're going to come up with a different answer. So that would be, I think, step 1 and step 2, if I was in your place. Collectively get everybody on the same page. You as the chair issue a planning direction or guidance if we don't want to be directive. So everybody's going in the same direction, and the first step would be at some kind of collective information management. So everybody's operating on the same page. And then after that, people can say, well, I think these are my 3 most important things. Everybody's going to have the 3 most important priorities. Explain why, and then you can start and prioritize a work effort. So Councillor Kraus can work on the heating plan, for example. Committee member Casey can work on the information plan, for example.
Okay.
But my suggestion is, my recommendation is there needs to be some kind of a collective plan, else we're just going to go from point to point to point to point at each occasion, and we're going to start to run out of time, people, money, resources. We'll never actually get to some kind of a defined second iteration of the plan, which includes things like, what do we do when we get called up?
And I think the biggest challenge for us, we meet once a month, kind of thing, you know, like there's just, I don't know, like trying to get all of this stuff done is very difficult to do in an hour's, 2 hours a month, kind of thing. I think that's our biggest,
But that's where the plan would work in the assignment of activities so that you don't just do it during your 2 hours here,
Right.
but you're working on it before you get here.
Right.
And you bring a product to here.
Yeah, very good point. So somebody mentioned scribe was a thing.
Yeah,
So-
during an emergency.
Well, so I would suggest, tonight, should have been a scribe. So whenever you say, okay, we're gonna do that, heating, comms, cell booster,
Scribe.
and then, so all of those things go down, and then somehow we decide, this is my to-do sheet for the next time, do we agree? Do we actually want to do these things and why? And then you start going, person A, person B, who has the ability to do these things?
I have 2 scribes.
Yeah,
Does
but we
it-
can't do all the stuff on that list. That's the thing, right?
Does anybody wanna do this? Does anybody wanna do this? Do you have the skill set to do this? Do you have the time to do this? And it becomes a task for somebody or an ask for somebody. And that becomes your work plan going forward. And then we convene once a month, and you say, okay, Casey, you're being slow, hurry up, you're taking too long. You did a good job here, do we have to tweak this here? Do we want to do a collect, and so you can just sit back and steer. You can just keep changing your guidance, but we're all going towards the same direction with a collective plan.
Sound good for everybody?
Well, her terms of reference are really the bylaw, right? And if you read the bylaw that relates to this type of work, really the emergency plan is the big thing, and then making sure that we're able to execute it if the time ever comes.
That's pretty
So
much it.
I'd see that's really the core of our duties right there. And then there's some of these other things that fall out of that, and, you know, like the portable heating, that kind of comes out of that, but that's really the core of our duties, if you read that, right?
You mean putting the plan together?
Well, putting it together and then making sure that we can execute it if the time comes.
Yeah, so there's
So I mean,
doing the planning,
yeah,
and then you actually execute it, and you have to decide what the town will be doing versus RCMP, fire, Red Cross, and all the rest of that stuff.
yeah, we're just support, we're not doing any of that
Yeah.
stuff, but
We're only support.
but we wanna be able
We're
to
literally a
support, we
Rolodex.
wanna be able to support these guys, do what we can, and any other agency that's involved. So we just gotta understand our role, but,
Yeah, like to me, our committee is, I won't say it's very low on the scale, but we are there to, when Chief Kraus calls and
This committee is
says,
a behind the scenes, make the phone call, get the
Right.
stuff
We're
there.
support staff.
right,
yeah,
so,
that's what, we're just support.
yeah.
I-
It's kind of like when
But it-
Chief Kraus called and he was like, you know what, can you call Irving Oil? The propane tank is half full, so that's what we did. Call Taylor Petroleum, call DTI, call NP Power and told them that, you know, Island View, the power pole had broke, and just so that, and then for the community centers to make sure that we have them open and food, and if we ended up
As far
having
as
to
emergencies
activate, or
When frontline first responders have exceeded what we can do, our capacity is when we make the phone calls.
to us.
You make the decision whether you wanna call everybody,
Considered a community
or you just wanna up that to NBA, EMO,
Right,
so.
So this is good, so we're now starting to work through what your guidance would be, because he has an idea of what the EM committee should be doing, he has an idea, I have an idea, everybody does, and it's all a little bit different. So we need to collectively define the problem that we're facing.
Have you, and I honestly don't know, have you taken the ICS 100 and the BEM through NBEMO online courses?
I've done the equivalent with Canadian, US, NATO, NORAD, and US Northern Command.
And honestly, I don't.
No, it's a fair
know your
question,
background, so I'm asking
nobody
you.
knows it, yeah. So I've done the equivalent,
Yeah.
he gave me the link to it, I'll go through it so somebody can look and say I'm qualified to be in here, but I've done the equivalent on the outside.
Yeah, no, because there are, the only way I would say, those training are available for free through the website, so I don't know who it has any for training, that's all I was.
See, I think the committee is more than just during an emergency. I think it's preparing and trying to avoid emergencies. So such as, is Yoho up to date and hasn't got
Right.
enough generators and heaters or whatever the heck it needs?
Yep.
That we think in advance of that, you know, so that, for example, I'm a little concerned that they don't have enough bottled water in an emergency, whether it be on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday. You know, why don't they have 100 bottles of water just in case, or 1,000 or whatever it is, sitting there and it gets changed every month?
Or why don't we just have a phone call, we can call a distribution center and have it within a couple hours?
Well, you didn't, we didn't do that this time.
We didn't need it.
I thought you said we did.
No,
You
we
giving out
were
4
able
liter
to.
jugs and you had to go around and search all the different stores to get,
No, the 4-liter jug is just the recommendation from what we've done before, like, the fire department has done before.
People come to the firehouse with their own jugs of
Yeah.
water to take home to use to flush their flush because they didn't have.
I agree with the flush, you had lots of that, I'm
Yeah.
talking drinking water.
Potable
Yeah, we
water.
didn't have
Same
drinking
with
water.
it.
Okay.
Same
They
thing.
come over here and took pot and were able to fill their jugs
Okay,
up with
but-
potable water.
But all I'm saying is, we have to, I think part of this committee, not the only responsibility, part of it is trying to anticipate that.
Yes, it is.
And
I
that's-
Absolutely.
and that's
I
either,
agree.
Yeah, I agree.
you know, saying, look, in the worst case, you've got enough water. I don't care what happens, you've got enough water for a day or two.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, it costs money, but that's part of the process. you
But
know.
it's not only money,
But
space.
and that's just one example, maybe though, it's not a good one, you know.
Yeah.
If our community, 15 to 20 people are gonna be out of power every so often, they don't have a generator, then we should think about that. And I'm not saying, I think we did it tonight, you know, how do we get them a generator? Well, go stir shit up there and make them get a generator, you know, like, let's get going.
Can I
So,
just
but
make a
that's the
point?
future part.
Everything seems to be revolving around the fire department. The fire department actually reports to you when it comes to emergencies. You are the commander-in-chief, if you will. And not every emergency involves the fire department.
Correct.
So it has to be focused on the greater, not just focus on fire.
Yeah, I
So
don't-
let's not go down that road.
I don't think we were talking
Okay.
that.
Well, I was getting the impression that everything was discussing was going to the fire department, doing the fire department. And it's not just the fire department. So there are lots of things that this committee's involved in that the fire department is not the lead.
No, but I was just, my thing was, if the police, fire, whoever was going to or to evacuate people, they're going to contact me.
You, yeah.
We as the committee is the support to make sure that they get a place to go. We're not out there evacuating
Right.
people. So that's what I'm saying, we are more of a support to police, to fire, to NBEMO, to
Right. And in
whoever
those
is.
situations, you would be contacting NBMNO, whatever it
Yes.
is. And they would also provide resources.
Right.
It's contextual though, because sometimes the town is doing something. Under a soul, there's a very specific list. So you're not always in a passive role. Sometimes the town does get into an active role. So it depends on the context.
But still, if it's a soul, then I'm in major contact with NBEMO.
Yeah.
Cause they can't be,
But you're making decisions, you're not in the
she
support role at
can't
that point.
declare one until the minister, public safety minister signs off on it.
No, the mayor can declare a
The
soul
mayor
on his
can
own.
declare
They
it.
declare it.
Declare it,
But
but then
before
it
it
needs
to
to
go
be
into
signed
act-
off
Oh,
by them.
yes.
Chris Austin currently now has to sign off on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Anyways,
That might be the case, however, there are a lot of situations where you're making active decisions, not support-based decisions.
Oh,
Yeah.
myself?
Yes.
Absolutely, but I'm saying we are on, I mean, the chances of having a soul are fairly slim. So I'm just saying, we are more of a support group than being out there, like I,
And that becomes part of your guidance, paragraph 2. In all seriousness of that, if paragraph 2, your priority is this, and it's to focus 80% of our effort on support to templated organizations, and 20% is based on worst case, we still have to address them, but that becomes part of your planning guidance.
yep. So I think, like, moving forward, we just need to, like you said, be proactive, be thinking of what needs to be done, and kind of make a plan of what we want to do for each month.
And that comes under your terms of reference. You know, it's not stated that we have that plan, but we're looking at helping the community, so we have to do X, Y, Z to help the community, so it's just a little more organized and pick our pieces instead of working on 5 things at once, we work on 2.
So yeah, so if there's anything that you can think of that you want to do over the next year or whatever, just kind of make note of it and we'll talk about it next month. But let's start that heating process and hopefully we'll have the information back from Harvey and Bath and we can get that kind of in place, because it seems like our storms are more normal than, seems to be more of them, so.
We had 2 in 2 weeks, so. And then when the accident,
Okay, so is there any other business that you guys want to discuss? No? Alright, so it is 7:45. I'll call this meeting to adjournment.